we just had Christmas. So if you were to make a wish to Santa, say, okay, I want to make one wish. I want to have one legislation changed. Which one would you like to focus in 2024?
Um, I definitely think it would be adequate representation of children in the legal system. I think that's most important because through my own experience, not actually through the court system, but just personally through personal experiences I've had with people, but as well as some people I know who've gone through it, when the child is able to express truly what is going on, because there's a lot of silencing. There's a lot of we don't want you to speak, you're too young. That's why I was told that, I was too young to testify and things like that. When legally that wasn't actually true. I could have, but it was just another way of trying to suppress my voice. When the child is given that testimony, when someone is fighting for them, when a legal advocate is actually fighting for them and listening for them, or speaking truthfully on behalf of, the child, if the child isn't comfortable and the adult can speak, then that's also great. Because when you have that personal voice, because they'll say things that children shouldn't know, unless they've experienced those types of situations. And so it becomes very difficult, and it becomes very damning information for the abusive parent to try and cover that up and say, like, oh, they're lying. It's very hard to convince a court that once the child has finally spoken.
The Ms. Texas Show is a voice of hope for victims, survivors, advocates, and community leaders against gender-based violence to share their stories and resources. We began showcasing life in Texas. Today we are impacting lives not only in Texas, but also around the world. Under our segment Military Time, we run this segment in partnership with the National Veterans Chamber of Commerce. We invite military and veterans who have overcome traumatic events to share their experiences during and after their military service. Under our beauty segment, we invite fellow pageant winners and contestants, artists, musicians, actors, models, and dancers, and last but not least, our survivor leaders from family violence, sex trafficking, sexual assault, stalking, and other traumatic events who are ambassadors for these causes to share their lives and the impact they have made. To become a guest on our show, email us at MsUSATexas@gmail.com. If you would like to support victims and survivors of gender-based violence, make a tax-deductible donation to Hope Pyx Global at www.hopyxglobal.org.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the new 2024 TheMsTexasShow Show podcast. Happy New Year, all. As you can see today, we have a special conversation with our newly onboarded co-hosts, Miss Angelica Bitlack, as well as Fiona Elizabeth Curley. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, tell us a little bit of you how you got involved in this work and what you are doing now. Let's start with Angelica.
Yeah, so my name is Angelica Bidlack. I'm founder of Themis Magazine, and my activism for social justice actually started in middle school when we were assigned a project to discuss, fast fashion was my topic. And I did a presentation on fast fashion, and I was just shocked at, all the what was going on behind all the social injustices, the environmental injustices. So that really got me into, environmental and social justice in the fashion industry. And through that interest, I kind of developed into, my interest in politics and social justice. And through that, I've met so many young, passionate people who also have similar views, similar passions, have been working on really amazing projects. And that later developed into me founding Themis Magazine recently last summer. And Themis Magazine is where any youth can submit articles about a specific topic they're passionate about their activist story, what inspired them, what motivates them, to Themis Magazine. And we like publishing that to inspire previous non-active youth, but also just to show what youths are capable of, to form this kind of community around, youth justice, youth activism, and yeah, that's what I do. That's my focus.
That's excellent. We definitely need the youth input and youth leadership, and that's what we're focusing on, as you can see on this podcast. So tell us about you, Fiona.
Thank you. So, hi, my name is Fiona. I'm 17, I'm a high schooler, and I'm also a domestic violence survivor as well as a survivor of the family court system. As I'm 17 right now, and I will be turning 18 at the end of January, I cannot say a lot of what I went through for my own what I'm comfortable with expressing right now. But currently, what I can say is that I live with my mother. My mother and I are both survivors, and I have a father who's abusive. And while we tried to go to the court, and we wanted the court to help us, they did not. And in fact, it made it worse for us. And so my advocacy pretty much is centered around helping children who have gone through domestic violence, specifically children who have gone through the family court system. And in my work with the United Nations Association of the United States of America, UNAUSA, I was a co-drafter for the Declaration of Human Rights by American Youth. And I focused on, with four other co-drafters, I believe we focused on peace and security and technology and innovation, but I was there for peace and security. And because that fell under things about the judicial system, the legal system, anything about the court. And what we tried to focus on was juvenile justice for young Americans, raising the age of the juvenile justice system, who can go through the system, things like that. And especially we focused on, and we made sure to put that, no one can be taken from their home. No one can be taken from their home without their permission, which is especially important today, since in the family court, there is basically a legalized form of human trafficking. There are reunification camps where children, I did not experience this. I have friends who experienced this, but they went through the court system. They were ordered, basically, they were sentenced to have this forced therapy, which isn't really therapy, just kind of to have physically force them to be with an abusive parent. And this needs to stop. It needs to be banned, but currently it's legalized. And I hope that my advocacy and my work towards a more reformed family court system can stop that. So that's currently what I'm doing.
Well, first of all, happy early 18th birthday, and I really commend you for your courage for doing the work you do. I believe that later on you all will see that Fiona and Angelica will have a dedicated section just to talk about the Declaration of Human Rights for the American Youth, which she will talk more into the details. But without further ado, today we're going to talk about anti-human trafficking, as we are commemorating the Human Trafficking Awareness Month. And as you all know, that I am the ambassador, and particularly regarding peace, justice, and strong institution. Human trafficking is a transnational crime. It is also an intergenerational crime. It is also related to so many different aspects, which is cross sectors, such as human rights, health, education, and you name it. So today we bring out our youth leaders with their views and talk about, discuss what we're going forward in 2024. So I wanted to first introduce what the UN is doing right now. Regarding the SDG 16, UN Women is going to have its 68th session in March this year. But SDG 16, when it relates to gender-based violence and human trafficking, particularly promotes the peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development, provides access to justice for all, and build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. And so I would like to hear from both of you what you think, from your perspective, what really would you like to see happen in 2024? And as we all know that the SDG goal, the deadline is supposed to be 2030, and a lot of the goals are behind the schedule. What would you like to see, not just for 2024, but in the long run, particularly related to the areas that you're working for? And let's start with Angelica.
Yeah, so I'd really like to see more discussion about this topic in the education system. I feel like this is obviously a very huge and important topic to discuss. However, I haven't really been hearing much about it in a classroom. So I think normalizing that and discussing about what it is, why it happens, how to prevent it, and how to help people who have gone through such experiences is really important. And I also think, reaching out to young people and letting them know that they do have a space to share their experiences, their opinions, and what they think about the topic is also really important. So, giving open spaces where people can comfortably share their experiences. And since I specifically work with fellow young people, having a space young people can also express this would be great to see.
Excellent. You talked about this earlier as well, that you can voice their, whether it's their story, whether it's their opinion, advices, anything on the Themis magazine. Of course, the Miss Texas show, the voice of hope, so they can voice as well. How can they reach you? And you can reach us through the Miss Texas show social media and send us the message or the email. But how can they reach you here?
Do you mean on Themis magazine specifically, or just fellow young people?
Fellow young people, particularly, I guess, regarding this topic, if they want to, whether voice theirs through anything through the Themis magazine, how do they reach you?
So Themis magazine has their own website. We also have an Instagram page. If you're on that, Themis magazine _ or Themis _ magazine. And we also have an email. All of that information is found, on our Instagram profile and on our website. So you can definitely reach us out through DM, through email. We also have a submission section on our website where you can submit your story or any article you're interested in sharing. Regarding reaching fellow young people, I do think school communities are a great way to do that. I mean, before I was active on different organizations and on social media, I was active in my school community. That's where I started. I gave presentations to my classmates, to different clubs. I hung up flyers, and I think I really did make an impact in my school community on how they see fast fashion. I mean, that's the main topic I was discussing back then. And yeah, so that's really how I started, and I think it does do a huge impact. And then looking towards what is in your area, if you have, different organizations that are in your area, reaching out to them is great as well. You can do all of that, through the internet. And lastly, yeah, utilize social media. There are a lot of hashtags. I mean, there's hashtag end trafficking, hashtag freedom first, which, those are big hashtags, which do help and do have an impact. So yeah, utilize what you have. It doesn't need to be something huge. You can start small and then expand.
Exactly. I think we have two great role models here, Angelica and Fiona, and that's why we bring the both of you on. So if you are listening and you have your stories and you feel more comfortable sharing with Fiona, Angelica, reach out to us, and this is the platform for you to exemplify your voice. So next, we would like to hear from Fiona. What do you think that you would like to see in 2024 and going forward?
I definitely would like to see, more legislation, perhaps on the state level and the federal level, in the United States, and around the world. There are so many things that the family court, for example, is allowed to do that could be stopped if proper legislation were to go through and were to tell these judges, you can't do that. For example, again, the reunification camps. They're only allowed because no one has said basically you can't do this. I know In California recently, I believe it was Pyx law that was just passed. I know it bans reunification camps in the state of California, which is a wonderful thing. But I think currently it's just California that has banned reunification camps. So I think, more legislation, anything that can protect women, basically protect women, protect all victims of domestic violence, protect children who have gone through domestic violence. And I would definitely like to see, on top of that, a more a bigger recognition of children's right to due process, because a lot of children, especially in the family court system, they don't get a lawyer, they have their parents, and that could be good for them, but that also might not be good for them. And there are also a lot of quote unquote advocates in the family court system who are supposed to represent children, and they do technically represent the children, but they actually end up helping the judges and they end up helping the abusive parent. And so I definitely would like to see a more greater recognition of proper due process for children as well.
One thing is passing the law, one thing is, to enforce the law. And then secondly, it appears to be, correct me if I were wrong, several of the things that has to be improved and or corrected. So although we both know that doing the legislation takes not just one session or even 1 year or one try. So if you like, let's say, we just had Christmas. So if you were to make a wish to Santa, say, okay, I want to make one wish. I want to have one legislation changed. Which one would you like to focus in 2024?
I definitely think it would be adequate representation of children in the legal system. I think that's most important because through my own experience, not actually through the court system, but just personally through personal experiences I've had with people, but as well as some people I know who've gone through it, when the child is able to express truly what is going on, because there's a lot of silencing. There's a lot of, we don't want you to speak, you're too young. That's why I was told that, I was too young to testify and things like that. When legally that wasn't actually true. I could have, but it was just another way of trying to suppress my voice. When the child is given that testimony, when someone is fighting for them, when a legal advocate is actually fighting for them and listening for them, or speaking truthfully on behalf of, the child, if the child isn't comfortable and the adult can speak, then that's also great. Because when you have that personal voice, because they'll say things that children shouldn't know, unless they've experienced those types of situations. And so it becomes very difficult, and it becomes very damning information for the abusive parent to try and cover that up and say, like, oh, they're lying. It's very hard to convince a court that once the child has finally spoken. So I think that representation is essential.
I wanted to clarify one thing when you mentioned about the legal representation. Are you referring to, because earlier you talked about, sometimes the parents are representing them going pro se without the lawyer. So are you referring to both legal representation for the lawyers as well as the advocates that you were referring to as well?
So in my own court case, there's always supposed to be I believe they're called a guardian ad litem. They aren't fully like, how in like the criminal court, you get that lawyer and they'll say, I'm going to help you, don't talk to the police, talk to me first, and I'll tell you what to say. The advocates in the family court system for children are very condescending, and they do not fully they don't fully show what like how an actual lawyer should act. And so on top of that, I personally did not have one because my mother said I should, but my abusive father did not want me to have one. So not only did I not have an advocate, who probably wouldn't have even been good, I didn't even have an advocate to begin with. So my mother ended up unofficially representing me, and she would speak on behalf of what I had to say, which is difficult to begin with because there were most of the time in the court she didn't have a lawyer herself. So not only was she representing herself, but she was also representing me. So she had to represent two clients, and she was not a lawyer. So I think to have specifically, we need guaranteed lawyers. The children just has to off the bat have a lawyer, because currently, at least I know in New Jersey, at least in Essex County, a parent seems to be able to, as long as one parent says, no, I don't want my child to have a lawyer, then they don't get a lawyer. So, that there has to be lawyers who, are representing the children without the permission of the parents. And also, that has to be guaranteed, because I don't want, like children to be left stranded basically with no one, because they don't have that access to the legal information, and fully understanding what's going on. So they need someone who does.
That's very, very impactful information. Thank you for sharing that. And once again, I really commend you for your courage, and we'll definitely put that on the docket. And for all of our audience, we have our audience who are comprised of the criminal justice system, legislative makers, as well as advocates and survivors. So for those who are interested, I would love you all to contact Fiona, and which you can contact through us, and then we'll connect the both of you. I'm sure, depends on what the topic is and that's related. We would love to connect the both of you, and that's after all what the platform is for. And so, moving on to the next, we're talking about, again, regarding the entire month of the Awareness Month. The Department of Health and Human Services of the United States had a plan, focus. And this year, the focus is to activate the connections to prevent human trafficking. And the theme will focus on activating connection to build individual, family, community resilience to human trafficking. And this, really sort of just like reemphasizes what we are talking about here. How can we all connect, whether it's adults or youth, whether it's a school educational system and or the criminal justice system. So Angelica, since you have the Themis magazine, and obviously, youth are very active on social media. One of the focuses the Department of Health and Human Services is going to talk about is education, which you have covered. They also are going to focus on the online harassment and abuse. So I'm curious about what you think, can be done when it comes to prevention of online harassment and abuse, which relates to, different forms. It can be bullying, it can be sexual harassment, it can be grooming for human trafficking. And then, when it applies to the domestic violence, gender-based violence situation, it can be the abusive parent that use the social media platform. So I'm curious, what's your opinion about what needs to be done, and what has what you see?
Well, for one, I think it's really important that people know how to put words to a situation. I think oftentimes it's difficult for people to describe what even is going on. And I think that's why that should also be implemented. Part of in the educational system is that we need to learn how to normalize talking about something freely without, judgment, without, as Fiona mentioned, doubt that this may be true. Being able to accurately describe what is happening to a person, if it's yourself or something you're observing what's happening to another person. That's one thing I find super important, and which I would, highly recommend we should implement. So that I would say is the main thing. A lot of human trafficking also becomes, because they don't know the language of a place they've been, brought to. So there has to be a way for people to communicate what is happening. That's number one for me. Also, this might seem a little off topic, but what I wanted to say, what Fiona was talking about earlier, answering your previous question about what young people can do, I do think it's really important that young people know they can talk to representatives. They can talk to their government. I think often people think that's something for, elderly experienced people is this huge process, but no, really, they're just like an email and a phone call away. You can really recommend anything, any bill you'd like them to look at, a specific topic. That's something you can do at a very young age, and I do recommend that's something we can, access as citizens. So, yeah.
Thank you. Yes, I think you mentioned something, I think both are important. And regardless of the topic, young people definitely have the right to talk to your representatives. And we have the role models here again. And I think you were talking about the societal norms about victim blaming, which Fiona talks about as well. So, to kind of dive a little bit deeper into the victim blaming, Fiona, you talked about earlier that people were like being judgmental about whether you can represent yourself, while you should have the rights to represent yourself. So I'm curious, while it's not might not be directly related to online harassment and or online abuse, what do you think, like when it comes to the societal norm, the victim blame that people should do?
Yeah.
Or not really.
I definitely do think that social media included that, even though it's not fully related to the court, a lot of abusers, they like to publicly shame basically the survivor, the victim, and they like to I think there's a lot of projection that goes on. They'll say things that they did, but they'll make it sound like the victim did it. So they'll turn them into this monster. And because disproportionately a lot of these survivors are women, women are not usually believed. So I definitely think the within our society, we need to stop with the gendered opinions, basically, because more often than not, it turns out that, men a lot of times are to blame for a lot of things that women are blamed for. So if we just, let go of women do this, men do that, women do this, then we can sit down and we can go, okay, there are two people here, that are a couple. Let's listen to what person one has to say, and let's listen to person two. And then let's truthfully, with full fairness, understand what's going on here. Because most of the time, as soon as, it turns into that he said, she said, that's said a lot. And I hate that. I hate that phrase. But, as soon as we let go of he said, she said, basically, that will significantly help. I think not just in the court system, but, throughout like our society in general.
Yes, I think that really makes sense. In the work that I do, and in the room, really like anti human trafficking, gender-based violence, in addition to the victim blaming from the society, like you said, people tend to say, okay, I'm hiding behind the screen. They might even use a fake name and try to blame, say this and that. And we have to ban some of the members from certain groups. I have some of the advocates come to me say, I have this person going across through different members and they are banned. And that's very unfortunate. And I also wanted to mention that this is why we created this platform, to be a safe space for you to come to voice your story. And again, as I mentioned before we even started with Fiona and Angelica, that if you don't feel comfortable saying that, you do not owe anybody an answer. You don't have to say, okay, you don't have to justify, because this is your story and you own it. And I really encourage, just as this is the theme of our podcast, Hope, Love, and Unity. We want to promote that. So I want to encourage, not just if you know Fiona, not just your friend, your family, but if you're a stranger, give them the support, the hope, and the love that they need, instead of just go on and place the blame to them. And I want to also, encourage the survivors. As I mentioned, some of the members that were banned, they were actually survivors. People say hurt people hurt people. So they're not healed and they're going around and blame other people. Why don't we turn that negative energy to the positive energy? So, on this note, I wanted to thank the both of you. I am really excited for this year forward 2024 to both of you on board as our youth leaders to bring on, the fresh opinions and everything to help us go to the next level to be the platform for the voice and to advocate for these important issues. And before we let you both go, do you have anything that you would like to say to our audience, Angelica?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, and thank you for all the work you do and voicing people, powering their voices. So first of all, thank you. To the audience, I'd like to say, keep doing what you're doing. I'm sure what you're doing is fantastic, and although it may seem like there aren't that many opportunities for you, there really can be if you make them or if you find them. And so, yeah.
Thank you, Angelica, for the great work that you do and your leadership.
Thank you.
Fiona.
Okay, so as Angelica was saying, thank you, for inviting me. I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak here. And I look forward to everything that, we're going to be doing. And, to everyone who's listening, um, pretty much if you feel like you're giving up because you feel like, everything, just like everyone hates you, the world is horrible, nothing is getting improved. We just had in California, what I was saying before was we had a law passed that banned reunification camps, which is huge. And again, it's just one state, but that can grow into all 50 states, and then that can continue into another country and another country. And soon we will have, the reform that we've been looking for. It is not a endless battle. It's a battle with an end. It's just kind of hard to see when that is. And that's what you have to look forward to. So, don't give up. Thank you.
Don't give up. Yes, there is hope and the light, and this is gonna become a ripple effect. Look at what you all are doing and the great impact you're working on. So thank you again. You are watching the Miss Texas show, and today we have our guests, our co-hosts, Angelica and Fiona, and myself, Eileen. We all look forward to seeing you in our next episode, and tune in.